Okay, and now I'll activate the PowerPoint presentation. Slideshow from beginning. Okay, do you see the first page, Daniel Libeskind and Zvi Hecker? Hello, yes. Please answer me.
Yes, 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 it seems.
You know, why does it take you so long to say yes?
Okay. I had to unmute.
Okay, so I start. I start to Daniel Libeskind, who is a good friend of Vatsal here. And then I'll talk as a bonus about a very, very, very interesting architect, also born in Poland, just like Daniel Libeskind, Zvi Hecker. But I begin with Daniel Libeskind. Okay, I'll show you some school projects by Daniel Libeskind. This is one of them, if you can believe it. You know, there are all kinds of schools of architecture in the world, and he studied at Cooper Union in New York, which was a very progressive school. And at the time when the dean was John Haydock, and this kind of thing would be totally unacceptable in most schools of architecture, but not there. A very, very special school in New York City. It was the only free of charge school in the United States, but very, very talented people got in through an exam, and you know, usually they had brilliant students there. But this is what Libeskind did, you know, while a student. You know, you could say, what is going on here? Well, what is going on here is a quest for complexity. Yes, there is chaos. Yes, there is disorder, but there is a quest for viscerality, for complexity. This is I just show a few graphic works by him at the beginning. He also studied music, and apparently he was a virtuoso with a piano, although I only saw pictures with him with the accordion. But he claimed he was a virtuoso playing the piano. So these are kind of like, you know, musical quotations. Now this is a sketch he did for, you know, 9/11. He actually won the competition for the master plan and the new World Trade Center. You see the Lady Liberty on the left. Well, in the end, it wasn't his building, his proposal that was built, but he won the competition. He does all kinds of artworks as well. I saw in Venice at the Venice Biennial a very interesting series of works, like I think 4 years ago. Now, he became known because of this competition in 1993, meaning almost 30 years ago, for housing in Berlin. Again, do not try to, you know, get suggestions from him for school, because you will fail the project. This kind of thing would be unacceptable in the schools, at least in Romania, but in other schools as well. But he won the competition, and you see, when you work for competitions, you have to have courage. You have to take risks. You have to believe in what you do and go to the limit. And that's what he did, and that's why he won. Sorry, I hear. There are already 8 people here. If you are so kind, if anyone has the microphone on, to turn it off, but I see everybody turn it off. Sorry, I'll continue the trip through Libeskind's work. I'm actually surprised that there are 8 people here with me, because, I mean, including me, because I announced just, you know, 20 minutes ago or so about this ad hoc presentation. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we see now some graphic works by him. We saw a few images with the model for the housing complex in Berlin, which made him famous in 1993, and he was included in the exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art, Deconstructivism, based on this project. He was one of the 7 deconstructivists, and maybe I'll have a picture here with all 7 of them. So this was the site plan for the competition. Well, there is no picture here of, not yet, maybe later. I don't know, because this presentation I made 1 or 2 years ago, but it doesn't matter. I can tell you the other 7, or the other 6. So one of them was Libeskind, the deconstructivist, Zaha Hadid, Peter Eisenman, Rem Koolhaas, Bernard Tschumi, and Frank Gehry. Did I miss any? I start again. Peter Eisenman, Daniel Libeskind, Rem Koolhaas, Frank Gehry, Bernard Tschumi, Zaha Hadid. Again, I have a feeling I lost one. Anyway, yeah. The Jewish Museum in Berlin, which is a very famous work by him, and whoever goes to Berlin goes straight to that building by him. This building was not a laughing matter, of course. It was based on the, trying to express the anguish, the angst because of the Second World War and the horrors of the Second World War. And, so it is a commemorative museum with tragic connotations. You can see the existing building here, and he did also the covering of the courtyard here. But the main museum, his new intervention was this one, zigzagging, like a zigzagging geometrical snake. And the zigzagging also takes place on the elevations. As you can see, there are graphic thunderbolts. Otherwise, the building is cold, is covered in zinc, and it is made intentionally to provoke anguish, because this is not a happy museum, and I think he succeeded. And his professor, John Haydock, has 3 buildings not far away from this museum by Libeskind. Berlin opened its doors to many important architects in the 80s and early 90s, and they did the same 2 times before, in the 50s and once in the 30s. A very wise city. And any city could do this. If a city is wise enough to invite for a certain, usually for housing, the housing program, architects from the most known in the world at that time, they have the chance to build a colony of great buildings signed by great architects. And Berlin did this 3 times, in the 30s, in the 50s, and in the 80s. Well, other cities could do the same, but they don't. Anyway, back to the museum by Libeskind. So, as you probably know, Libeskind was born in Poland, in Krakow, I think, or in Lodz, no, probably in Krakow. And immigrated when he was a young man to the United States. The other architect I'm going to talk about today, and a very, very, very interesting architect, also born in Poland, but immigrated to Israel, and he built some incredible buildings there. You'll see them. By the way of this wild nature, I just read 2 days ago that there is a return of rewilding. What does rewilding mean? Well, rewilding means to let nature do its works without any intervention. In other words, let nature be wild. Hands-off landscaping, it's called hands-off landscaping or hands-off nature. Why? Because of the pandemic, there are drastic cuts in the budgets of governments and the city organizations. So they don't have time, they don't have the money now to pay people to manicure, gardens and parks and so on. But this is an excellent thing because nature, in its generosity, will assert herself more, vivaciously, and we can only gain from this. There will be more oxygen, there will be less pollution. So I really think we are at a time when we need wild nature. Do not cut any trees. Do not cut them. Even the most so-called unimportant trees, but there is no such thing as an unimportant tree. Every blade of grass is important. Every bush, every tree. We need nature badly because we damaged her, we damaged the earth. And now we complain about climate change, we complain about many things. So in my opinion, we should let nature be as wild as it wants. We can only benefit. I'm sure of it. I perplexed professor here. I told him, I said, for me, a blade of grass is more important than the Parthenon. And then I explained, I said, yes, because with all respect for the Parthenon, a blade of grass is alive. It grows towards light. The Parthenon doesn't grow towards light. So compare a blade of grass with the Parthenon. One is alive, the other one is not. Yes, the other one might be a great work of art or a great work of architecture, but it doesn't grow towards light. While any bush, any blade of grass, any tree grows towards light. So we should never forget this. Nature is alive. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Are Jews a minority in Germany? I mean, was the World War, when Hitler was the dictator of Germany, I think he targeted the Jews. So was this museum built so radically to express that, that though they are a minority, they can have this kind of a building or something?
Well, of course it was a minority. I mean, in Germany, there were more Germans, of course, but it's not just because they were minorities. There were other minorities. Right. It's because of the horrors that happened in the Second World War. So,
right.
Okay, we move forward. Now we see he proposed a national Holocaust monument in Ottawa, in Canada. I don't know if this one was built at the time when I prepared this material. It was not. Then an industrial museum in China. This one I don't find so convincing. To be honest with you, I think it's rather burlesque. But yeah, it was built by him. The Chinese build anything. I read the British architect said, we cannot afford in England to build what the Chinese build because we have all kinds of restrictions and regulations. In China, practically, you can build anything. And people are very open, surprisingly. They emerged from a very drastic communism, but it's the land of experimentations in the field of architecture now, China. And it has been for a number of years, of course. They build the wildest things. They have the economic power and they are very open-minded. So yeah, they build anything. Now, you see, Libeskind is, you know, I don't know how profound he is as a philosopher, but, you know, he conceptualizes also in, you know, forms that are not explicitly related to architecture. I know in his office, I knew a couple, they were married, who worked for him for 5 years in Berlin. And they told me that the books were very, very important in his office. He had a very, very large library, and you were allowed and even encouraged to open books, to study, to read during the office hours. Not bad. In other words, he tried to unite the act of knowing with the act of doing as it should be. But I don't think there are many offices in the world where you are allowed to read and to look through books while you are at work. Unfortunately, it should be like this, but it's not. Now, you know, less known work in Belgium, although his trademark triangle is present here, all right, for all to see. Personally, I think this is a weakness in his work, that there is a mannerism that repeats itself quite often. But he's still an interesting architect who pushes the limits of the sculptural quality of the work as far as possible. Yeah, this is a pavilion. You'll see this one. It was built in Milan, and for China actually. And he wanted to build a dragon, and that's what he did. And it's very well done. The only reservation I have, so to speak, you see the flat roof. The building is very organic and animal-like. Dragon or whatever, but it's cut at the top in a way that is, well, not just at the top, but at the top is obvious. You know, yeah, people need, I guess, horizontal surfaces to work on, but it's in contradiction with the general spirit of the building. You'll see it. But you see this surface, this fluctuating, this fluid surface is done impeccably. It's built impeccably, and of course it couldn't be done with manual drafting. This is the building. So it was built for China in Milan, in Italy. This is why I keep telling the students, study software, stop using the T-square and the rectangle. Nobody works with them any longer. They are useless unless you do some extremely simple things. But the world we live in is very complex, and most architects got rid of the T-square and the rectangle a long time ago. At Columbia University in New York in 1990s, so 30 years ago, they renounced not only to the T-square and the rectangle, but they also renounced to paper. At least a portion of the School of Architecture in 1990s was paperless lab. And I think if we are concerned with sustainability, with ecology, with all kinds of crises, with climate change and so on, we should abstain from cutting down trees to produce paper, to draw on that paper, and often that paper goes to some infamous place that is the schools of architecture, at least the ones here. That paper ends up in the garbage can, and it's absurd and tragic to cut down a tree to produce a paper which ends up in the garbage can. It's like throwing directly the tree to the garbage can. And then we complain that there is pollution and that we have problems with sustainability and the climate change. You see what I'm saying? The building is very well done. That moving fluid, organic skin of the building, but it's cut at the top very abruptly, and I wonder why he couldn't do something a little more in the spirit of the building. But at the level of the eye, look, it's impeccably designed and impeccably built. And as long as you don't see that drastic cut at the top, it's fine. This was the project. And you know, I keep saying a good building is interesting even during construction. At any stage of its construction, it is interesting. So there is a level of spontaneity, and you know, this adds to the aliveness of the building. I mean, look at these elements. You know, they are all different, and you know, for this you cannot work. I mean, you need a computer to do something like this if you are to be rigorous. It's also very possible that they might have used robots to build it, because you know, the robots are insinuating themselves with great force into architecture's work today. The Serpentine Gallery in London, with his symptomatic triangle. The new Lithuanian Modern Art Center was not built, I think. We only have here the, I hope there is more than just this, the unveiling of the model. Yeah, we do have the project here, but I don't think it was built yet. The Kurdistan Museum in Erbil, another work by him that was done. You can tell, you know, from a first glance that this is a Daniel Libeskind work. Now, this tower in Jerusalem to me is a little problematic, to say the least, because you don't expect something like this from a deconstructivist. It's actually a very centrist or kind of central building. It's based on you know, it's a monolith, and it's a monolith of a pyramidal you know, essence, you know, and this is in contradiction with what deconstructivism stood for. You know, it's so central and so solid and so you know, obviously geometrical and symmetrical, even, that you wonder what happened to Libeskind. Not to speak about also the scale. You know, it's not a modest project, and it's not, personally I think, is not even very sensitive. It's, I guess it's a sign of civic pride or power, but I find it questionable, this work. Fortunately, it was not yet built, and maybe, hopefully, it will not be built. In Vilnius, another work. He works also with curves, as you can see. So he's not very inhibited, and that's that's good for him. Architectural experience, a sketch by him. Anyway, he's enjoying himself. He loves cowboy boots, and you can even see them here in this picture. Cowboy boots made of lizard, of the skin of a lizard. I don't know, it's something strange about those cowboy boots. Maybe we'll have a picture with the boots too. But he's without doubt a man of success. If by success we mean, you know, building whatever he wants to build, and being recognized, being appreciated, and so on. Casa Origami. This is a house he built, like an exhibition house, kind of a model house. It's interesting, but it has a problem, I think, and we'll see it soon inside. I like the fact that he works with planes that are not perpendicular on the horizontal slab. It's dynamic. It's fine. And you know, you could say this is a house for someone who is not a creature of need, but a creature of desire. Meaning, for someone who wants to transcend certain limitations. But the problem is that when you look at this kind of, you know, adventurous geometry, and it's not too adventurous, other people worked and work in this way. But what is surprising is indoors, and I hope I have a picture here with that. Not so much here. Okay, the library, the books still have to be on those shelves. You know, respecting some kind of orthogonal or Cartesian, you know, setting. Although I have to tell you, there is a book which doesn't have 90 degrees angles, and it was published with the works of Edgar Allan Poe. It's called Agnostic Architecture, I think, and I have seen that book. I had it in my hands. It does. It's like it's trapezoidal. It doesn't have right angles. So when you put it on the shelf, it will be very unstable. He did it intentionally to be unstable. This is okay, you know. Well, you don't know. Is it a house? Is it a museum? It could be both. But let's hope there is an image with a bedroom. Now look at this. To me, this is ridiculous. I mean, you build a house of danger, you build a house of, you know, unconventionality and dynamism and so on, but then you have this matrimonial bed with symmetrically situated lamps, very static and also covered with that horrid covering. And I don't know, I mean, maybe he was not totally in charge of everything, but this is his, you know, manifest house in a way. This shows in a way, and this is also happening in the case of Frank Gehry, where, for example, that very tumultuous hotel in Spain that he built is very Dionysian and very energetic. But when you go inside the rooms, you also see that, well, you know, we love tormented and tormenting forms. But when it comes to the bedroom, we want the conventional bed and so on.
Dan?
To me, it's a contradiction, because, again, if you advocate a different modus vivendi, meaning a different kind of life, you cannot use this kind of bourgeois bed. Try to do something with a bed too. I don't know, make it or sleep on the floor on an animal skin or something. Don't make it so funeral, you know.
Can I interrupt?
Yes,
Actually,
please.
this bed is quite dangerous. If you see the left angle, that will hurt you if you are not careful. That the left side angle, that protrusion will hurt you when you get on the bed if you are not careful. So it is in a way dangerous bed.
I don't think it will hurt you at all. That's behind. No, it doesn't hurt you. But in my opinion, it is a little superficial what is happening here. But we move on. Yes, it looks nice like this. You know, you would say it is a building that is, you know, yeah, affected by a tornado, if it is not itself a tornado. But anyway, and to be honest with you, with all due respect for Libeskind, he can be tiring with these, you know, triangles. I mean, really, he uses them too often, and you know, it's a mannerism. But there are qualities also in his work, and let's salute him for you know, making a niche for himself, so to speak, in today's world. I mean, there are qualities here in terms of spatial, you know, variety, and but there are also contradictions, I think, and some like that bed again. When I see that bed, it belongs to a different place, I think. Okay, the museum. This is his one of his earliest works, and I think it was built before the Jewish Museum in Berlin, and it's not bad. It's a small art museum, and you can tell immediately which part, because there are two buildings there, essentially, which part was his. But even here, you know, he torments the elevations of the building in this graphic way. And here it is, you know, you understood this in the case of the Jewish Museum in Berlin, but this is a different kind of museum. Okay, if it just happened twice, I guess it's okay, but it didn't happen just twice. But on the other hand, there are also other interesting windows here, as you can see, especially those two on the left, but maybe even the one on the right. Libeskind in New York. Now he was very involved politically. You see, you know, the governor of New York with a blue tie, and then the mayor of New York on the left. Libeskind is in between them. And, you know, lots of people looking at his scheme. I think he's a good salesperson. He knows how to sell his ideas, and he won the competition. But the tower, the new World Trade Center, was actually built by David Childs from SOM, and not by him. But he still had probably some kind of saying in the master plan. Now I can tell you who these gentlemen are. On the left is Fumihiko Maki, an important Japanese architect who built a skyscraper here. Now I don't know who, I think the next one from left to right was the developer, Silverman or Silverstein. Then the governor I think of New York, then Libeskind, then Norman Foster, Sir Norman Foster, and the one on the right, on the most right, is Sir Richard Rogers. They all have, you know what saddens me actually, that they are all smiling and they are all happy-go-lucky, when in fact this was about the death of more than 3,000 people, not to speak about the incredible damage done to New York City. Now I understand, this was a few years later. But still, you know, where is that reverence? The only one who is discreet here is the Japanese Fumihiko Maki. Everybody else is like they are sharing a pie. I actually find it vulgar. You know, I'm really disappointed by architects, and I agree with Frank Lloyd Wright, who said, nothing wrong with architecture except the architects. How come you forgot so soon, Mr. Sir Norman Foster? How come you forgot so soon, Mr. Sir Richard Rogers? How come you forgot so soon, Mr. Daniel Libeskind? But this was a big tragedy. I don't understand them. But the ego of architects is huge. So, you know, to hell with the dead, we have a chance to build a skyscraper here, right? So let's do it full of hope and confidence and so on. I mean, look at his face. That's the face of someone who, I don't know, I don't understand. Anyway, that's the tower he built, and I'm happy it was not built. I mean, that's the tower he won the competition with. He proposed all these, I think, but in the end, they were built differently, and he didn't build it. The one who built it, as I said, was David Childs from SOM. And the tower, the new World Trade Center tower, is that one. And you can see it here, actually, the one on the left. It's a much more, yeah, it's very rigid. I'm sure that that tower will not fall for anything in the world, but it's, you know, it's less lyrical than maybe some would have liked it to be. Anyway, some projects I think that are here from that competition. Now, this is the tower by David Charles and SOM. This is the sketch by Libeskind. And you see him here with a cowboy boots that I mentioned. You know, anyway, why not? And the library that his employees had access to and enjoy looking through these books. I think it's very beautiful when you have books in an architecture office, because books mean knowledge, and they mean art, and they mean culture, and they mean ideas. And, you know, it's very, very stimulating, even if you don't open a book, but to work in the proximity of the books, it's like you feel inspired. You feel part of a cultural whole or wholeness that without the books would be diminished. So I strongly recommend to anyone to work with books around, even if those books are not necessarily yours or even open. But if you have a book in the proximity of a computer, you are connected with culture, with ideas, with other people's genius or other people's creativity and so on. Yes, books are nice. And anyway, the architect as a salesperson, sure, it helps. Denver Museum of Art, maybe you saw it again and again. The signature triangle is not so easy to get rid of. He uses it in various places, various scales. Well, 2 or 3 times, I guess it's okay, but more than 3 times is a little bit, I think, a little bit tiring. Anyway, but what does this triangle mean? Essentially, I think it means it's an act of rebellion. It's also an aspiration, a longing for the beyond, that it is above or in some other place, but it is an expression of a desire to break the rules. And as such, it is needed. The triangle is dynamic, but he uses a triangle that is very astute, and it becomes almost irritable or irritating, or could be irritating, and maybe there is an asocial side in him to an extent, although he is a very good, very well integrated in society, but it's possible he has some kind of asocial you know, trait, perhaps, because this triangle is, you know, is some kind of, you know, affront to the bourgeois, to the common way of life. And you can tell, you know, this, it is an exaggeration. It is an attempt to distort the building beyond the functions that it houses in the name of an expression. And of course, this expression can be done in this way or in some other way, but he likes this triangle, which to my taste, and I could be aggressive too, it is aggressive. But but his aggressivity was accepted by society and paid for. Otherwise, there are many interesting things here happening. I didn't visit this museum, but I imagine it's, you know, it has interesting spaces. So, like the other deconstructivists, he was attempting and is attempting to dramatize architecture and to express the drama of today's world. And in this, I think, is legitimate. we cannot be placid in today's world. It's just too complex. And to be happy with a placid expression means to, in a way, to betray our time and place. On the other hand, the deconstructivists brought conflict into architecture, and they had the courage to externalize this conflict. So architecture and conflict, this is what we get most of the time when we look at works by Libeskind or the other six deconstructivists. They love conflict. And yes, of course, conflict is part of life. But how different they are from for example, the great Mexican architect Luis Barragan, who thought that actually a good architecture is one that brings you harmony and peace and serenity and doesn't agitate you. But the deconstructivists thought and think and feel in a very different way. Life, it is not just a series of calculations and the sum total of statistics. It's about experience. It's about participation. It is something more complex and more interesting than what is obvious. I agree with him. And that's why I think architecture should have the courage to experiment, to even make so-called mistakes. It's nothing wrong with mistakes. Mistakes are part of life, and we learn from mistakes. Architecture is not based on concrete and steel and the elements of the soil. It's based on wonder. Beautifully said. I totally agree. You know, it doesn't matter how well you calculate and with, how well you think out the concrete and the steel and the elements of the soil. If you don't have that wonder, meaning desire, that wonderment, yes, in front of life, in front of nature, in front of God, if you want, if you don't know what other word to use, if you are not childlike, then better abstain from building, really, because I think a great building expresses this sense of wonder, expresses this being childlike, asking questions, being emotional, being innocent, even, and I think he's capable of this. I mean, look at this picture. This is not the picture of an adult. It's the picture of a child in a way, and I like this about him. I had my reservations in some other places, but I like this fact about him. He's a child, and I think we should all try to be childlike, because it is the child that moves creativity onwards. Yes, you made it, Mr. Libeskind. We agree. Yes, you were successful. Anyway, maybe not everything was so pink and so happy, because every life has obviously problems. The Museum of Contemporary Art in Milan, this was kind of, very similar to that pavilion billboard China. Almost embarrassingly similar. Well, maybe not totally, but there is something similar. Yes, it was not built, as far as I know. Well, is this a rendering or what? I guess it is a rendering, yes. These days it's difficult to know for sure, because the renderings are done so well that you could almost swear that the building was built. Something for Las Vegas, a huge melodrama here in the city of sin and pleasure, a big department store or mall, Of course, what would capitalists do without selling and buying, no? Without shopping? I shop, therefore I am. And if I don't shop, I gamble. What else is Las Vegas? Actually, that book by Venturi, I think it should be sued for immorality. I am a little bit joking, but not totally, because I actually think that there is nothing to learn from Las Vegas. I'm sorry, Mr. Venturi and Scott and Brown, but I don't think there is much to learn from Las Vegas. What could you learn from the city that is based on tricks and cheating, because that's what casinos are, right? I mean, why is it that casinos build skyscrapers for themselves? You know, when the chance to lose and win should be equal, no, 50-50. Maybe one day I'll tell you more about this, because I I gamble too in a casino, and I know what it is. There are places of corruption. This is what Las Vegas is the empire of corruption, Mr. Venturi. So what are we to learn from, even in terms of architecture? It's all a delusion. It's an architecture of delusions and reflections and falseness, in fact. Anyway, we move forward. The building might be interesting, but when you think about what function it serves, you know, and again, you know, what that aspiration for the beyond, for the above, for the unknown, when is actually is present also in a mall in Las Vegas, I'm beginning to wonder, you know, is it what is its expression what I would have liked it to be? Maybe not. As for the staircase, I find it very conventional and predictable, and even you know, something about it that I don't like it at all. Anyway, it's not for me to like it, of course. Okay. Moving forward from the city of sin to something else. It's unbelievable what humankind invented, you know, in order to entertain itself. Our obsession with entertainment is so total, you know. I read in amazement, you know, that when the restrictions were lifted in London, people flooded the pubs, you know, and I keep saying, this is why we live. I mean, is it enough raison d'etre to just get drunk in a pub? That's all we live for? Or to go to Las Vegas and gamble? Anyway, nothing is real here. Nothing. It's all fake. It's a mirage. In a way, it's the opposite of the paradise, the biblical paradise. It gives the illusion of being paradisiacal, but in essence, it's a very sad, you know. I cannot say reality. Origami Swan, yeah, this is. I don't know why I show this. I don't know why I show now the Yakov Chernikov, the constructivist. Maybe there was some influence on because these Russians were incredible. They influenced, like, for example, Malevich influenced Zaha Hadid. Yakov Chernikov influenced apparently Libeskind, but also influenced Bernard Tschumi. And why am I showing now this? Sorry, some slides are, or some images are, you know, there with a reason that now I do not totally agree with. This is another museum he proposed for it was not built in Iraq. Then the pyramid in Jerusalem we saw, and then this is not. This is actually by. This is by Herzog and de Meuron, proposed for Paris. And this is in North Korea, of course. So we can reflect a little bit about these three pyramids. Libeskind, Herzog and de Meuron, and you know, the capital of North Korea. Okay. Yes, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. This building I like. I think it's one of his best works. It's convincing through its drama, and I'm happy the Canadians built it. But once is enough. I have seen works very similar to this one, and also by other people, because there are people who you know, get inspired by his work, and they propose things that are similar to what he did here. But it is dramatic, and in a way, this is the role of art, to destabilize us, you know, to as the French say, épater la bourgeoisie, meaning, you know, to shock the bourgeois, and you know, he succeeded. It was built. And yeah, this is the role of art, I would say, to shock the comforts of, you know, let's call them the bourgeois. Well, he gets away with murder, really. This is what we have when you are a star architect and you are established. If you continue on that line, you know, you get along with you know, with crime, because people accept you, because you have a status, and but you created that status, so we should acknowledge you know, the process through which he established himself at this level, doing these sort of things. This one we saw before, again in Canada. Now this building I have seen from far away, and once I visited Cincinnati. I regret now I didn't come closer to it. I like actually this building in Cincinnati. It's an apartment building, and I think it's done well. I don't know in terms of tectonics, but you know, it's form, and you know, it does function as an apartment building. Compared to those on the right, obviously it is much more interesting. And yes, it was built. Well, the thrill of wealth. I don't know. I don't know what to. I mean, I do know what to think about this. You know, about this thrill of wealth. You know, I find it really revolting, actually, when there are billions and billions of people who have nothing to eat. We talk about the thrill of wealth. There is so much poverty in the world, and I really accuse capitalism of being very, very shallow and very immoral. You know, we build those extravagant things for the thrill of wealth, without considering that in many, many parts of the world there is poverty. It's very sad. It's very sad, and unfortunately, the architect is collaborates in this. You know, maybe Philip Johnson was right when he said that the architect is, you know, a high-class whore, because you know, you sell your services for whatever you know is needed to be built, without asking yourselves questions of a moral order, and it's problematic, you know. So if these towers, which to me actually don't evoke so much the thrill of wealth, I actually think he's not a great builder of towers. I think that apartment building in Cincinnati was done well, but it's not too tall. When his buildings become very tall or tall enough, like here, I think he's on a shaky ground. And you can tell, you know, those towers are, a tower is supposed to be, I think, you know, representing some kind of victory over gravity and a certain, you know, verticality and vigor and force and even masculinity. And here we see, you know, flaccid towers in a way. Anyway, this is what I feel and think, but others, of course, are entitled to think differently. I don't think he is great in building towers. I personally wouldn't like to live in any of those buildings. I would rather live in those that are low height, you know, and not in the towers. They don't convince me. It's something almost fishy about them, if I am to say so. Anyway, he tried to make them a little more sensitive, so to speak, but I don't think they are. I'm subjective in this, of course. I like more this what he's playing with here than I see you see a book. Do you know who this person is in his library? By the way, I like his library, the shelving system. Its industrial shelving system is excellent. You don't need you know, polished shelving system. It's fine, you know. This simple something industrial that you can purchase from a department store, it was just fine. But the gentleman who is here with a mustache, and I see it's the only book oriented towards the viewer in a way, the viewer being mainly himself, is Edgar Allan Poe, the great dark North American poet. Quite a good poet, and quite dark, and with a tormented life. I imagine he liked Edgar Allan Poe. Anyway, but if I look at him now in this picture, I would still see kind of like the melancholy teenager or so. That I think there is a child in him, and is a quality that I like. Now, I don't know about this, but anyway, they made it very good. The developer and the architect. Yes, the thrill of wealth, Mr. Libeskind, indeed. But that wealth is not distributed fairly. So I don't really understand all that happiness on your face, to be honest with you. Anyway, maybe the architect is not supposed to be a social worker and not ask questions having to do with, you know, the well-being of the others, but I actually don't believe it is so. No, I think when we talk about the great thrills of wealth, we should think about the very, very, very many who do not have enough to eat, and they are the numerous ones. I think that these towers are pathetic. I'm sorry. I like the man, I like his childlikeness, but I don't like the towers. I think they are. I should be even more. I should abstain from saying more. Okay, now this is a Metro hotel. Okay, another. Okay, a little bit graphic for my taste, but as graphic as his cowboy boots. I mean, even this, I don't know. It's something, I don't know. I don't know what to think about. I mean, I do know what to think about cowboy boots made of lizard skin, you know. Anyway, Sonnets of Babylon, Venice. This one I saw and I liked. I told you about the artworks he did for the Venice Biennial 4 years ago. And I photographed them. I think they were very excellent. I don't know exactly how he reproduced them, how printed them, and maybe he even didn't work all by himself, because just to do one drawing like this, you know, you have no time. You would have no time to run an office. But I like this whole series. I have been there and I have been impressed. And I congratulate him for this, even if 20 people work for these drawings. It's, I guess, okay. I don't know very well the relationship between them and Venice, the city, but he wrote a text about this, so you could find it on the internet. This one we saw. This one we didn't see yet. Yeah, that's how he was in 1955 with his accordion. Yeah, we know that he played. He was a virtuoso in music. In fact, he declared that if he didn't follow on the path of architecture, he would have become a musician. And in fact, he said initially, I was a virtuoso as a musician. So there was nothing else to grow towards in music because I was already at a high level. I thought that playing the piano, but I only saw pictures of him playing the accordion, whatever. So he chose architecture. So developing architecture beyond the traditional tautologies, we are given historically an architecture that is dynamic and moving forward and operating in a new set of interests that are not just old modernist interests, but have to do with history, culture, literature, philosophy. I totally agree. And that's why those books are necessary. With art in general, totally agree. It is an exploration of creativity and the humanistic tradition of architecture, which means that architecture is, of course, a scientific field, a technical field, but it is equally part of the humanities in the sense of ideas, philosophy, literature, poetry, geometry, astronomy, and so on. Totally agree. Architizer, what is your advice for young architects who might be in this experimental stage now as they progress to bigger projects and spaces? Take the risk. True, beautifully said. Take the risk. Don't just get involved in the buildings, but pursue your ideas for your development, even if it doesn't just have an immediate application. At the same time, I think that experiment is really fantastic because it does lead you, if you follow that path, very rigorously and in a very disciplined way. I put a great value on this. Actually, I wouldn't call it experimental because experimental is more scientific. It either works or it doesn't. I would call it more of an adventure in the pursuit of your passion for architecture. And that will certainly lead you, if you are not surrounded by cynics, but by people who share your ideas and can discuss them with you, is the best way to lead young architects to fantastic things. Yes, I totally agree. Architecture should be an adventure, and your passion should be fully there. Without passion, there is no life. And if there is no life, there is no architecture. So passion and a sense of adventure, of discovering new things, is very, 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 very important. I totally agree with him here. And yes, take risks. Unfortunately, schools of architecture punish you when you take risks because you madden the professor, because you risk of getting a low grade, you risk of not being able to pay the taxes. But true architecture is beyond these things. So it's your choice, but you know, I would listen to what Libeskind said here. I always tell young architects, pursue what you dream about. Again, it's about dreams. Fight for your dreams. Don't throw them away. Don't discard them. Don't be discouraged by cynics or skeptics. Surround yourself with interesting people. Keep going. You just have to have patience. There is no rush. It's not about quantity, it's about quality in my life anyway. I have been lucky. I could have expanded and doubled the amount of people. We had so many projects. I said, no, let's not expand. Let's keep it so it's about architecture, not mass production. If I was not working on every project, if I was not involved fully, I wouldn't want to do it. It wouldn't be fun. So again, he says the same thing. Don't betray your dreams. Fight for your dreams. Have them and keep them and develop them. Now, Zvi Hacker, I complicated my life, but since I started this, I will talk about another exceptional architect born in Poland, about whom I'm sure you know nothing, because he's not well known, but you will not regret for waiting for Zwiehäcker. This is the gentleman. He's also, I think he's still alive, around 90s. They live for a long life, architects. I like the way he looks. Once I was in an exhibition with him in New York. I could show you the works, Adam's House in Paradise. Okay, now you see from 1961 to 1964, he worked with Alfred Neumann, Eldar Sharon, an apartment house. So it was more than 60 years ago. This building in Israel, and you'll see other buildings built by them and by him in Israel, and some quite remarkable. So as opposed to Libeskind, he immigrated to Israel and not to the United States. In a way, he chose the difficult road, but he was able to build significantly there as well. Unfortunately, now when he's older, I think he lost some of his cutting edge adventurous, risk-taking architecture, and I have seen some disappointing projects. Maybe because he didn't have commissions, so he began to make some compromises. But we'll see lots of works by him that are exceptional. Now, laboratory building, this one also from the 60s, so 60 years ago, also working in a team. And I think there are very appealing and convincing details here. Very rhythmic, very geometric, but sculptural. Here, with his colleagues, his teammates, manipulated geometry very convincingly. Now, another housing project, very ample, as you can see, also in Israel. Not bad. And look at this building. Unfortunately, you see it here, but you'll see other pictures without the interventions of the inhabitants. Very courageous, you know. In Rotterdam, there is a complex of buildings that use rotations and polyheders. But this one is more hybrid now because of the interventions that the inhabitants were allowed to make to the existing building. This is a museum. I will come back to this. Some drawings. He drew a lot manually and has some very, very impressive drawings. Now we arrive at the spiral apartment house at Ramat Gan in Israel from 1989, so 31 years ago, and is remarkable, this building. Look at this. It is a hybrid building. It is impure. It is imperfect. It is alive. It has dislocations. It has deconstruction. It also has polyheders. It has a spiral. It has everything, just like life itself. And there is also the order of geometry, but it is transfigured. It is transformed into a building that escapes an easy, explanation through geometry alone, because he combines too many elements. So it's a complex building, and is not afraid to work with various paradigms at the same time. Well, this image is actually from the previous project. Sorry about this. I didn't look at this presentation in some time, and I apologize. Here there are some images from various projects, and I really apologize. This should not have happened, but I'll explain what it is. This is a chapel for the army, the Israeli army, Also a remarkable building. I hopefully will come back to it later. Now we are back to the spiral building and other buildings they built, 6 years ago. Utopia, I'm afraid it means I have another PowerPoint presentation on him. If you allow me, I'm unhappy with this presentation because I think I didn't know that this one about Zvi Hecker, he deserves better than this. I truly apologize. This is a newer project by him, but was not built. This is a school in Germany, a school for the Jewish community. But what is going on here? I should have looked at the PowerPoint presentation before. I have another one on Zvi Hecker. So if you can forgive me, we'll see a collage of various projects by him back and forth. This one we saw before. This is a city hall also in Israel that he built in the 60s. Then this one, we come back to it. Sorry for this melange, but in a way maybe is related to the very nature of his work, which is not linear. It's not. It's a hybrid. I'm trying to make a virtue out of a deficiency. Sorry about this. Anyway, so this is a housing complex that he built, and we saw it before. It has been transformed by interventions of various inhabitants, but you can still see the building. And these are houses for poor people. You would say, how is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Why should social housing be banal? No, it's very possible in some circumstances to build very interesting buildings, with a budget that is not very high. And this was done, of course, using the traditional means of doing a project. That is, no computers were involved or anything. But without doubt, he was a great. He knew how to work with geometry, even complex geometries. Now, this one. Why am I showing this one by Kiyonori Kikutake? A great metabolist. I don't know. Yeah, I think I know why. Because here we also have these polyeders, but we are dealing with a Japanese architect, a very famous Japanese architect, Kiyonori Kikutake, the Expo Tower in Osaka from 1970. I just wanted to show that, this was in Israel in housing, and this was at the Expo in Osaka in Japan, still working with polyeders in a certain way. So this is what Zvi Hecker says. Now this is what Lebesgue says on Zvi Hecker. Architecture as an idea cannot be limited to one-off masterpieces, but should create an inspiring fabric of spaces and ways of living, a tapestry of human invention and aspiration. It is possible to imagine a vibrant urban tapestry, a city with many Zvi Hecker buildings, while it is not possible to imagine the same with the singular buildings of, say, Zaha Hadid. And he was friends, actually, with Zaha Hadid, maybe even more than with Zvi Hecker. I think what he was referring to here is that the hybrid qualities, the imperfections, even the unfinished parts of his architecture make it open and as such capable of accommodating various urban conditions. While a building by Zaha could be a masterpiece in itself, but kind of divorced from what is around it. Here, even if the architecture is unique, because it contains so many conflictual elements, and you know, it's not static, it's dynamic, and it could connect at an urban level with other buildings. Plus, what I like also is not an obsession with a masterpiece, and you can tell it's also the humble gesture. You can tell that this is a play with geometry, but it's not done for an elite. It's not done for the gods, and it's not done for the billionaires. It is actually done for people like me and you, like people on the street. And this aspect, I think, is important. And look, you'll never see, you know, clothing hanged out from the balcony in a building by even Libeskind or Zaha Hadid. But here you see it, and I think it's a good thing that you see it, because it's real life for real people, you know, not for stars. I like this amusing statement by him. You know, real art and real architecture cannot be totally legal. Beautifully said. You know, indeed, real architecture cannot be totally legal. Somewhere, something, it has to be a little bit at least illegal, because you betray the rules in the name of art, in the name of life, in the name of being honest with yourself. And I like the way he smiles. Very, very nice. Don't forget this. The students who are still here, I hope, should never forget that real architecture cannot be totally legal. As this was probably not totally legal. It doesn't look like being totally legal. And look at the inside, you know, well, humble table and humble chairs. It's okay, but the space is not humble. The window is not humble. It's fine. I would feel comfortable in that space, you know, even if I might hit my head here and there in some parts of the polyeder. It's okay. You see the virtues of the hybrid architecture, that, you know, there are additions that have nothing in common with what he intended initially. It's okay. It's okay. It's imperfect. It could be even a little bit kitsch. It's okay. It's life. Now back to that school that we saw a picture or two, the Jewish school in Berlin. The sunflower, the snake, and Persephone. That's what John Haydock on Zvi Hecker's Heinz Galinski's Schule or school wrote. There is the sunflower and there is the snake, and then Persephone is the literary work that John Haydock was very fond of. And you can find more materials about this building on Uncube, which is a very good site, I think, Uncube magazine. It's a blog, and now we see drawings. We see drawings by him for the school. He drew manually, and I don't think his drawings are inferior to those done by Libeskind. And this is the building. This is the drawing, and this is the building. Unfortunately, it looks more impressive from above than from the level of the eye. Yeah, this is a problem I have with it, but otherwise is a very unique school. There is no other school like it in the world. And this is the plan. There is obviously the quest for a center, but a center which is not static. It's very dynamic. And yes, it is based on the spiral. Just like Libeskind, he's also concerned with giving architectural expression to conflict, but he does it differently than Libeskind. Yeah, from the level of the eye is not so dramatic. Maybe the German regulations and so on ask him to, you know, calm down a little bit. I don't know. But It was built. I wish some of the drama of the top view would have been present also at the level of the eye. I feel the walls are too white and too, you know, too clean in a way. But anyway, this is what I think. There is a snake there, there is a sunflower, there is a knife even. So, you know, we are talking about many things here. Yeah, even inside is too. Anyway, let's just keep in mind the image from the top, because I think that is the most convincing, although of course architecture shouldn't be remembered like this. But what can we do? He has better works, and I think at least one museum I will be able to show it to you. I mean, it's probably still interesting. The spaces are interesting. I don't like the tectonics. You know, he could have used, I don't know, various materials, no, wood, stone, bricks, make it more like this, you know, these white walls, I don't know, leave me cold. Now, this is a project which was built, but is, again, I don't know. I like more his works in Israel than in Germany. Now this one is nice, from Tel Aviv, the Museum of History in Palma, from 30 years ago. You see again how important it is, the material aspect of architecture, the tectonics of architecture. You see, all of a sudden is something else. The presence of the stones, you know, the roughness, the concrete wall, but the stones and then the vegetation, and it's something else. I wish he could have done something similar in Berlin. You know, the textures of the walls are so rich and engaging. This is, sorry, it's going on. Yeah, this is the plan of the building. You have a conflict here too, as you can see, the two opposing directions. So his architecture is also an architecture of conflict, and is shown also in the drawings. But I here, as I mentioned, I like the textures of the walls. And it's almost an architecture that becomes landscape, or a landscape that becomes architecture. So what we see is just structuring some human activities, but you can't truly say it's not an object. And it's a good that is not an object. And look at the world, you know, how rich it is. Not everywhere, but this is another part of the building which is astonishing, I think. Yes, because you have the human hand is present there with its miraculous warmth, and when it is also combined with the earth, you know, you can achieve wonders. On the other hand, yes, there is geometry, and so the clarity of the planning of the plans is in tension, in conflict almost with the tectonics of the building. Look at these beautiful, irritations of the wall, if I can call them so. It's alive. The wall is alive. And the trees, of course, are happy also, because they can connect at least with some parts of the building, if not with all of them. And here is the architect at his desk, working alone. He doesn't have cowboy boots made of lizard skin. I like the man and I like his works. And too bad, you know, I'll show you now at the end a few projects from his later years. I think he it seems he lost something in his attempt to. Now these are still the drawings that that you saw. He's a dreamer. You can tell he's a dreamer. Yes, he has a white shirt, but he's a dreamer. And he's supposed to be a dreamer. And my advice to myself and to everybody else is, if you do architecture, don't forget your dreams. Just as Master Daniel Libeskind said. Here he is younger, a handsome man, I would say, with his collaborators then. The city hall, as you can tell, is not a chronological linear presentation, and partly I apologize, partly I say maybe it's all right in his case. The city hall in Bat Yam in Israel from 40 years ago, it's not bad. 60 years ago, sorry, 60 years ago. He built it together with two other architects. A city hall, an astonishing city hall when you think about it, you know, the end of 1950s. It's almost like, you know, when you look at what is happening on the top, you say this is a building out of this world in a way. It's not. It's in Israel and it was built more than 60 years ago. I think it's a fine building, and they just look at the buildings around it. This is you know, a resolute gesture, architectonic gesture. Is rhythmic, is geometrical, but it's also mysterious, and those things on the top make it even more alarmingly unique. Good work. And color is present too, and you can tell the children. How many children did you see in your life, or do you imagine seeing being playful with the walls or in the proximity of the walls of a city hall? But here you can see it. And this says something. When the children enjoy themselves playing in the vicinity of the city hall, it means the city hall has some warmth. And these are incredible, you know. Now a synagogue, we saw a picture from within. I called it a chapel. It was actually a synagogue, of course. It's in Israel. Excellent work also. 50 years ago, look at it. You know, you say it's built on the moon. It's not on the moon, it's in Israel. And look at this, you know. It's just for the army, you know, some kind of a small, you know, worshipping place there. Yes, if Sir Norman Foster would propose something like this for the moon or for Mars, you would say, wow, well, it was done by Tzvi Hecker in Israel 60 years ago. And you see the soldiers here, 3 soldiers, who even enjoy themselves with a backing of a wall that is sloping. So, you know, it is easier to, you know, you don't really stand up, you just lay on the wall. Sure, not bad. Anyway, interesting work. Unfortunately, the participants got tired of my presentation, so they are slowly or not so slowly leaving. Anyway, what can I do? At least we had a number of people here, so they saw certain things. Look, this is also inside this small synagogue. Then he even built a beautiful Arab village near Jerusalem from 1962. Excellent. God, people are living with. In fact, I should stop because I'm beginning to be alarmed. Very soon I'll talk to myself here. Could it be that this work didn't stir up any emotion? I'm actually curious who is here, you know, who still is here. Anyway, all that passion that Libeskind talked about is hard to come by, it seems. Okay, you saw this. I'm accelerating because I am a little bit disappointed that people leave, not even, considering that something is offered to them with as much passion as I can give, and they can learn something, and they still leave, leave. But what do you leave towards? This is the question. Anyway, this is a good architect that is hard to. He even proposed, these are newer buildings in Amsterdam. They were not built. Polish Solidarity Center also was not built. And anyway, I'm beginning to regret I should be a better salesperson, to.
Dan, can I interrupt? If you go back 2, 3 slides to that. Hello, hello.
Which one?
To that Pentagon housing. The funny part is people have put grills in those windows when you can actually not climb up and enter through them. That housing for the poor people with pentagons, geometry.
Yeah.
The funny part is people have put grills in those windows when actually no one can access them, because that geometry is such that you can't climb and enter someone's house through the window.
Well, I wouldn't be so sure about it. You don't know. Certain people probably can climb even on the ceiling. So here is the architect. We saw this. This was a lecture somewhere. He's well known, but not too many people. My God, this never ends. And yes, I am disappointed that some people left. But what can I do? It doesn't matter, how much. Okay, I finished. So
And
it's
probably after 20 years they will attend some lecture like yours.
There are still. So I want to thank Setarek. I don't know who he or she is. I want to thank Christina, and I want to thank Batsal. I began to panic a little bit because I saw people leaving, and it doesn't matter how much I attempt to transmit emotion and passion. I don't know. I cannot fight with a soap opera or something on TV, or I don't know why people would not stay until the end. But
no, we had 9 people at one point. We had 9 people listening, and probably many people rotated. So as many as 14 people should have attended today's lecture at different times.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised because today I sent an invitation very late, but I am still struggling. Pardon?
In fact, I would have missed it because I was having dinner and I chanced to see that you put up Libeskind, and I wanted that lecture, so I just rushed up and started my Zoom.
Okay, but now please don't starve yourself because of me. Just please go and enjoy your dinner. The food is cold. You have to warm it up. And I'm happy you came. I'm happy Christina is here, and I'm happy Azar. Again, Christina, she's the only one here from Romania right now. Maybe there were a few more people, but I guess I didn't do a good job since I was unable to keep everybody here until the end. But
No, in fact, Dan, it was a wonderful lecture, and I didn't know anything about these two architects, and their projects were wonderful, and it was a very nice presentation, no doubt about it.